Alright, in today's video we're going to be talking about plague doctors. Oh my goodness. Alright, sorry about that. We're visiting the National Geographic page, website, whichever works better for you, to talk about the plague doctors. Why? Because I'm going as one this year, and also there's a plague going on right now, so might as well. Although it's not the same plague as the plague that these guys dealt with. A whole lot. Theirs was definitely a whole lot worse. But why did plague doctors wear those strange beaked masks? Well, in the 17th century, people believed those outfits could purify poisonous air. They were wrong because they didn't have filters and stuff, and they would stick them full of like flowers and incense. The Black Plague, also known as the bubonic plague, was a terrifying disease that racked Europe a couple times in the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, and the Renaissance. And well, actually, I might be wrong on the Renaissance, but during the outbreaks of the bubonic plague, people would be gripped with this disease that it manifested boils over their lymph nodes, as their lymph nodes would swell, and they would begin to have difficulty breathing. It was highly contagious. I remember reading in my English history class that in college this book called A Journal of the Plague Year, where it was by this guy who was a shopkeeper in London during 1665. He described how he thought that containing people inside the houses instead of quarantining the sick people may spread the disease even faster, which turned out to be true when it came to the bubonic plague. And it might be true for other diseases. And one of the saddest cases that he documented was this lady who had the plague, gave birth to a baby who the baby came out having the plague, and they both died. And that was really sad. And like that mother, before all this plague hit, was probably looking forward to having another baby in the family, and then they both die on the same day. Very sad stuff. But that shopkeeper made that observation of like the families that were quarantined together with the sick person while everyone else was healthy would all get sick, and they would all be more likely to die, because in the difference between the poor and the rich in London, like the rich, I forget the name of the rich person he used as an example, but he quarantined himself to a shed on his property. He died, but the rest of his family survived. But bubonic plague still exists, and occasionally there are still outbreaks throughout the world. Last year, or the year, I think it was last year, these couple coming out of Mongolia had it because they ate a rat liver, and a couple squirrels in America have tested positive for bubonic plague. So the plague itself is carried by the fleas, not the rats. So make sure you wash your pets frequently, treat your lawn with anti-flea poison, and buy some 7 Dust for the house and dust it every once in a while if you have pets. and be safe with it. I shouldn't have to say that, but there's labels on the poison for a reason. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. And the iconic plague doctor mask was credited to Charles de Lorme, a plague doctor who treated 17th century royals, is often credited with the uniform that, with the beak that held the incense and flowers and stuff, because they thought it would shield them from the bad air, because they didn't quite have germ theory worked out back then, but he thought it would purify the bad air. But I'll just read it word for word right here. The costume is usually credited to Charles de Lorme, a physician who catered to the medical needs of many European royals during the 17th century, including King Louis VIII and Gaston de Orleans, son of Marie de Medici. He described an outfit that included a coat covered in scented wax, breeches connected to boots, a tucked-in shirt, a hat, and gloves made of goat leather. Plague doctors also carried a rod that allowed them to poke or fend off victims. Yes, fend off, because as whenever someone was quarantined, they were locked there with an armed guard, and in several cases when doctors came in to investigate, they tried to escape, and to keep from spreading the diseases, or being injured themselves, they would have to fend them off with the cane. And it also helped, obviously from this text you can tell that they used it to examine victims from a distance. This can be thought of as early hazmat gear. And however, quarantining didn't begin during this time period either. Although it was very popular in this time period, you can look in the Bible, and I think it's either Leviticus or Deuteronomy, and see that lepers, they also had a policy for dealing with quarantining lepers, not leopards, that's the cat. And they would go as far as destroying the foundation of the house and throwing it in a junk pile outside of town, which is very fascinating. Even back then, they were like, get all this disease stuff away from me. But the headgear, that is the most iconic part of the plague doctor uniform. Plague doctors wore spectacles, which I imagine was to keep the stuff out of your eyes. Very smart. This doctor was very smart. He was close, but he was missing a few details to help keep him truly safe. And the nose itself was actually a half-foot long, shaped like a beet, filled with perfume with only 2 holes, one on each side near the nostrils, but that can suffice to breathe and carry along with the air that one breathes the impression of the herbs enclosed further along in the beak. The very tip of the beak, they would pack that stuff in. However, that's still open air coming in. The germ, if it were airborne, which I'm not sure if it's airborne or not, or if it's just through fluids. But with an airborne disease, that wouldn't help at all. You would need filters to try and keep the microbes out of you. But I haven't read this full article, but we'll see what they say. Though plague doctors across Europe wore these outfits, the look was so iconic in Italy that the plague doctor became a staple of Italian commedia dell'arte and in carnival celebrations, and it is still a popular costume today, obviously. And man, Spirit of Halloween just charges like $23 for the mask itself, but has the whole costume for like $60. But I couldn't get the whole costume. They either had a size too big or a size too small, and I wasn't paying $60 for something that won't fit. But the forbidding ensemble was not just a deathly fashion statement. It was intended to protect the doctor from miasma, the bad air that I talked about. In times before the germ theory of disease, physicians believed that the plague spread throughout poisoned air that could create an imbalance in the person's humors, or bodily fluids. Sweet and pungent perfumes were thought to be able to fumigate plague-stricken areas and protect the smeller. Nosegays, incense, and other perfumes were common in the era. Plague doctors filled their masks with theriac, a compound of more than 55 herbs and other components like viper flesh powder, what the fuck, cinnamon, myrrh, and honey. That stuff, the last three, I think is sweet. Viper flesh, what the fuck? That's so weird. Delorme thought the beak shape of the mask would give the air sufficient time to be suffused by the protective herbs before it hit the plague doctor's nostrils and lungs. In fact, plague is caused by Yersinia pestis, bacteria that can be transmitted from animals to humans and go through flea bites. And through flea bites, contact with the contaminated fluid or tissue and inhalate. Okay, so it is slightly airborne. Inhalation of infectious droplets from sneezing or coughing people with pneumonic plague. Yes, the plague does spread to your lungs. It's truly a horrible way to die. You swell up, you're in pain, your flesh rots off of you, your lungs fill with fluid, and you're burning up the whole time. And when you have a fever, you feel like you're burning and freezing at the same time. Awful. 3 horrific plague pandemics swept across the globe before its cause was ultimately uncovered. The plague of Justinian, which killed up to 10,000 people a day in 561 AD, the Black Death, which wiped out a third of Europeans between 1334 and 1372, that's 30 years. Yeah, that's like almost 30 years. Wow. I hope this current pandemic doesn't last that long. And the third pandemic, 1879. Continued with intermittent outbreaks as late as 1879. And the third pandemic, which ravaged much of Asia between 1894 and 1959. What is a pandemic and why does it matter? It's basically when a disease outbreak is prevalent throughout the world. But as the article entails with its title, and as I kind of surmised, the outfit really didn't work because it allowed air in. Didn't make much of a difference. Unfortunately, writes historian Frank M. Snowden, the therapeutic strategies of early modern plague doctors did little to prolong life, relieve suffering, or effect a cure. Plague doctors may have been immediately recognizable, but until the rise of germ theory of disease and modern antibiotics, their costumes didn't provide real protection against the disease. You would definitely need like filters and stuff. Let's see what that would be. modern ways, modern protection, let's say that, against the Black Plague. Boom. Let's go to CDC. Reduce rodent habitat around your home, workplace, and recreational areas. Remove brush, rock piles, junk, cluttered firewood, and possible rodent and food supplies such as pet and wild animal foods. Make your home and outdoor buildings. That's such a weird way to say outdoor buildings. They say outbuildings. Rodent proof. Yep, when you live in the country or by a railroad, uh, that is especially hard and requires there's year-round vigilance. You gotta set poison all year round. You gotta make sure your lawn's taken care of just fine. So if any rats try to get to your house, birds of prey will eat them and stuff. Sometimes, and if they don't get eaten by the birds, the poison will take care of them. Wear gloves, although I don't recommend having poison traps if you have animals that eat rats. Wear gloves if you are handling or skinning potentially infected animals to prevent contact between your skin and the plague bacteria. Remember, the animals that you are hunting have likely never had a bath with soap. Contact your local health department if you have questions about disposal of dead animals. Use repellent if you think you could be exposed to rodent fleas during activities such as camping, hiking, or working outdoors. Products containing DEET can be applied to the skin as well as clothing, and products containing permethrin can be applied to clothing. Always follow the instructions on the label. Keep fleas off your pets by applying flea control products. Animals that roam freely are more likely to come in contact with fleas. Those fleas could infect you with plague. If your pet becomes sick, seek care from a veterinarian as soon as possible. Do not allow dogs or cats to roam free in endemic areas to sleep in your bed, because those little bugs could hop on top of you and bite you and infect you. Although a plague vaccine is no longer available in the United States, new plague vaccines are in development but are not expected to become commercially available in the immediate future. Now, why is that? Why does the U.S. not have a plague vaccine? There's got to be something shorter than this. Oh, because it's so rare, we don't keep a plague vaccine. So I'm guessing it's either because they can't make money off of it, or they just don't think it's necessary, since it's so rare nowadays with how we have flea shampoos, we poison the shit out of our yard, and we have rat poison easily available for as little as like $5 at the store. Which those rat poison bricks usually do the job. 7 Dust kills fleas. Outside, you want to use stuff like Orkin. That stuff. It takes a couple times, but it kills them dead after like 2 to 4 tries, in my experience. Even really bad flea outbreaks. But the plague doctor outfit is really cool. I got myself a plague mask. That's been Most of my friends have moved away. But doesn't mean I can't still have fun this Halloween. And I'm gonna go to the store, load up on candy, and remember, keep the plague at bay. And and don't eat apples. Don't scare away the doctor. The doctor's there to treat you. Thank you, and have a nice day.